Hello and welcome. I'm back to continue with the discussion of the subject governance and compliance audit. Today we are going to study ethics and integrity as a compliance issue. We'll be learning why ethics and integrity are compliance issues. And we all know, candidates, that ethics and integrity are not just abstract concepts. They are not just abstract concepts. They are fundamental pillars of good governance, and crucially, they are significant compliance issues for any organization. And in the digital era, and particularly in a market like Kenya, where public and private sectors are under scrutiny for corruption and misconduct, viewing ethics and integrity through a compliance lens is very paramount. So, how or why ethics and compliance are issues? That's what we are going to discuss in our today's lesson. We'll be discussing why ethics and integrity are compliance issues. And we will categorize our discussion into four classes. One is legal and regulatory compliance. Then we will study why ethics and integrity are compliance issues by looking at the internal policy compliance. Number 3 will be the reputational and financial risk management. And lastly, auditing and assurance focus. We look at it from the auditing and assurance focus. But let's first begin with the legal and regulatory compliance. 1. Legal and regulatory compliance. Now, many laws and regulations now directly or indirectly mandate ethical conduct and integrity, turning them into explicit compliance requirements. That is one reason why ethics and integrity are compliance issues. The law directly mandates that companies comply to ethical standards. You understand? For example, we have anti-bribery and corruption laws. Laws like Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act in Kenya make bribery and embezzlement and other corrupt practices illegal. And organizations are then required to comply. They must comply by implementing robust anti-bribery policies, training, and even internal controls, including due diligence on third parties. And failure to do so is a compliance breach with severe penalties. You understand? Legal and regulatory compliance. I've given examples of anti-bribery and corruption laws. Anti-bribery, that is number 1. Number 2 is the whistleblower protection. Whistleblower protection. Whistleblower protection. Legislation often includes a provision for protecting whistleblowers, e.g. the Whistleblower Act, which requires organizations to have internal mechanisms for reporting unethical conduct without fear of retaliation. You understand? Yes, so that is one area. Okay? Then, apart from the anti-corruption and anti-bribery and corruption laws, we have the corporate governance codes. Corporate governance codes. Corporate governance codes. We have corporate governance codes. Codes of corporate governance. Codes of corporate governance. Codes like the CMA Code of Corporate Governance Practices for Issuers of Securities. We have the Mwongozo Code of Governance. And these codes explicitly list ethical leadership as a core principle. And organizations are required to establish and implement a code of ethics to ensure its communication and monitor compliance. So you see, corporate codes of the corporate governance codes explicitly require organizations to include ethical ethics as part of compliance issue. So A, we have anti-bribery. This is anti-bribery corruption, anti-bribery and corruption. B, we have corporate governance codes. Then C, we have the specific industry regulations. Specific industry regulations. Specific candidates, we are studying why ethics and integrity are compliance issues. And we've seen it's a compliance issue because of legal and regulatory compliance. The law and regulations require, we've given an example, first of all, the legal and regulatory compliance, where many laws and regulations now directly or indirectly mandate ethical conduct and integrity, turning them into explicit compliance requirements. The law requires or makes ethics and integrity a compliance issue, meaning that organizations are required to comply with ethical standards and so on. So the third point is specific industry regulations. We have financial regulators like CBK, like SASRA, like Insurance Regulatory Authority, which require directors and senior management of licensed institutions to meet what we call fit and proper criteria, which inherently includes integrity, honesty, and a clean record. So integrity, accountability, honesty, those are ethical issues. So specific industry regulations require organizations to comply with these ethical issues: integrity, honesty, and clean record. And failing these tests is a compliance breach that can lead to disqualification. You understand? Fit and proper tests. We have fit and proper tests. That's one aspect of specific industry regulators. Then there is consumer protection. Consumer protection. Regulations often require fair dealing, transparent advertising, and ethical customer service, which turns ethical conduct towards customers into a compliance matter. So specific industry regulations have also turned ethical issues into a compliance matter or issue. D, we have data protection laws. Data protection laws. Data protection laws. There is what we call ethical data handling. The Data Protection Act in Kenya emphasizes principles like fairness and transparency in data processing. Those are ethical issues. And misusing personal data, even if not a technical breach of security, can be an ethical violation that translates into a compliance failure against the principle of fair processing. So that's the other reason, the fourth reason why ethics and integrity are compliance issues. Employment and labor laws and labor laws. Employment and labor laws. Laws against discrimination, harassment, and unsafe working conditions directly link ethical workplace practices to legal compliance. They link these workplace practices to legal compliance. That is another reason in relation to employment and labor laws. So I've explained legal and regulatory compliance, which expounds why ethics and integrity are compliance issues. So that's the first part of the lesson. The second part of the lesson, in explaining why ethics and integrity are compliance issues, we now focus on internal policy compliance. Internal policy compliance. Now, organizations establish internal policies, they establish codes of conduct and value statements that articulate their ethical expectations. And adherence to these internal documents is a crucial aspect of compliance management. So internal policy compliance could be in relation to code of conduct. It could be conduct. Code of conduct. Code of conduct. This is an internal mandate. Most organizations have a formal code of conduct outlining expected behaviors, conflicts of interest, use of company assets, confidentiality, anti-corruption stance, and adherence to this code is a fundamental internal compliance requirement. Okay? That is a very important point. Internal mandate, code of conduct. Then you have training and acknowledgement. Training and acknowledgement. Training and acknowledgement. Code of conduct and acknowledge the understanding and commitment to it, making it a traceable compliance activity. You understand? Making it what? Making it a traceable compliance activity. Are you following, candidates? Yes. So then we have whistleblowing policy. Whistleblowing policies. Whistleblowing policies. Whistleblowing policies. Again, candidates, we have organizations increasingly requiring or choosing as a best practice to have internal whistleblowing policies and safe channels for employees to report unethical or illegal conduct without fear of reprisal. And compliance with these policies is vital for internal integrity. Then, of course, we have conflict of interest policies. Conflict of interest. Conflict of interest policies. Policies, there are policies requiring employees and management to disclose and manage potential conflicts of interest, which are compliance mechanisms to ensure decisions are made impartially and unethically. So that is what we can discuss about internal policy compliance. And remember, candidates, we are discussing why ethics and integrity are compliance issues. So there is that aspect of internal policy compliance. Another aspect is reputational and financial risk management. Number 3, reputational risk management. Reputational and financial risk management. Failure in ethics, candidates, and integrity, even if not immediately leading to direct legal penalty, creates significant reputational and financial risks, which compliance functions are designed to mitigate. So we have things like reputational damage. which is as a result of unethical conduct, like corruption, unfair labor practices, environmental irresponsibility, which can severely damage an organization's brand. It can erode public trust and lead to customer boycotts. So compliance teams aim to prevent such ethical lapses to protect reputation. There are also financial penalties and fines. Financial penalties and financial fines. Breaches of ethical conduct, e.g. corruption or fraud, almost always lead to significant legal fines and penalties. And compliance audits specifically look for adherence to internal controls designed to prevent such breaches. You understand? Yes. Then you have also loss of investor confidence. Loss of investor confidence. Loss of investor confidence. Investors, especially those focused on environmental, social, and governance criteria, view ethical conduct and strong integrity as indicators of well-managed and sustainable business. So, ethical failures can deter investment. And that's why candidates' ethics and integrity are compliance issues. Operational disruption is the fourth point here. Operational disruption. Ethical lapses such as internal fraud or toxic work culture can lead to internal investigations. It can lead to employee turnover and operational inefficiencies. So these are 4 points to explain why ethics and integrity are compliance issues. The fourth aspect is audit assurance focus. Audit focus. Audit assurance focus. Auditors, particularly compliance and governance auditors, they scrutinize ethics and integrity as core components of an organization's control environment. So a good example is governance audits. Governance audits and compliance audits. Governance audits assess whether the organization has established, it assesses whether an organization has established an effective ethical culture, whether an organization also has a robust code of conduct and mechanisms for addressing ethical dilemmas. Here, auditors look at the tone at the top and the effectiveness of oversight in promoting integrity. Compliance audits, on the other hand, verify adherence to anti-bribery policies, conflict of interest rules, whistleblower protection, and other policies designed to ensure ethical conduct. And they also test the controls designed to prevent and detect unethical behavior. And that's why ethics and integrity are compliance issues, because of the audit and assurance focus. So, candidates, in essence, while ethics defines what is morally right, integrity is acting in accordance with those ethics, and compliance is ensuring that organizations' actions and systems consistently meet legal, regulatory, and internal policy requirements related to ethical conduct. And therefore, ethics and integrity are not just aspirational values, but they are critical, measurable compliance issues that demand robust management, continuous monitoring, and rigorous auditing. So do you understand, candidates, why ethics and integrity are compliance issues? Yes. That was the purpose of our today's lesson, to explain why ethics and integrity are compliance issues. And we've given examples for legal and regulatory compliance. We did say that many laws and regulations now directly or indirectly mandate ethical conduct and integrity, turning them into explicit compliance requirements. It is a requirement that companies comply with anti-bribery corruption laws. Companies should comply with specific industry regulations like data protection laws, employment and labor laws, and also companies ought to adhere to internal policy compliance. These are compliance issues related to code of conduct and so on, conflicts of interest, etc. So thank you for attending the lesson on ethics and integrity as a compliance issue. Bye-bye.